what exactly are UFOs? We don't know. And that is not to say that we don't know anything about them. It means that what we have observed from them does not fit within any category that we understand. We understand how Cessna airplanes work. We understand how dishwashers work. We understand how cars work. We understand all sorts of things. They are within the realm of human knowledge. No one can definitively say who is piloting the craft. We cannot say definitively how the technology of the craft work. We can't tell you what their motivations are. We can't tell you where they came from. Did they come from another planet? There's a good chance they did, but we don't know that. And that's what unidentified means. And it is super important that before we get into speculations about what they actually are, whether they are aliens or something else, I think it's important to first establish what defines this unknown, ununderstood phenomena as a true UFO. I'm going to use the term UFO in this video because I'm going to get into the origins of the term. Even though I like UAP better, I'm going to call them UFOs just for consistency's sake here. So there are a couple misconceptions about what defines a UFO. Believers often make the mistake of assuming that they are aliens from another planet. Now, I think there's a lot of evidence that suggests that this is the case, but it is not. It is not a definitive aspect of the definition of a UFO. The other misunderstanding comes from skeptics, who oftentimes deconstruct the meaning of the words unidentified flying object, and they point to unidentified and say, aha, according to the dictionary, unidentified means that it is something that we cannot know anything about, essentially. It's the dictionary definition, and that's it, and nothing more. There's no other context around it. By comparison, the word bathroom, if you want to take that literally, it's only a bathroom if there's a bathtub in it. And the place where you go to take a leak in a restaurant, that's not a bathroom because it doesn't have any bathtubs in it. So it's trying to dismiss the phenomena and deem it unworthy of investigation based on the idea that there's nothing there to see other than something that we can know nothing about. It's not true. And here is why. The term UFO was initially coined in 1953 by the Air Force, and they pronounced it UFO, which I kind of find amusing. I also find it amusing that when I learned that what I had read as UFOologists is actually pronounced ufologists, and that's kind of a funny word. I guess I myself am an amateur ufologist, so the Air Force identified a UFO as any airborne object which by performance, aerodynamic characteristics, or unusual features does not conform to any presently known aircraft or missile type, or which cannot be positively identified as a familiar object. Wikipedia goes on to say, accordingly, the term was initially restricted to that fraction of cases which remained unidentified after investigation. If you see something strange in the sky that you cannot explain, and you consider all possibilities that you're aware of, and you mistakenly believe that you've covered them all, even though an astronomer, if he investigated, would be able to say, no, that was a meteor. And 95% of cases investigated are easy to explain in that way. However, if you mistakenly come to the conclusion that you can rule out any conventional explanation and therefore it is a UFO, you may be wrong about it being a UFO, but you are using the term correctly. And that is how generally the term is used in just common speech that people use. Meaning of words is usually defined by common shared usage. So, that when the astronomer explains that it was a meteor, it does not mean that it was a UFO while it was unidentified and ceases to be a UFO once it's been identified. It was never a UFO because a UFO is only technically a UFO after investigation. If it's not investigated, then it can't be considered a UFO. So, the definition coined by the Air Force in 1953 was very early on in the history of modern UFO sightings. There's evidence of UFO sightings in far back in the past, but they didn't really start showing up until about World War II and about the time we got the atomic bomb. Very interesting. But we have like 70 years of data, sightings, records, and literature that expand on that definition of UFOs, because certain patterns have emerged about what these objects that can't be identified generally share. And because there is a commonality, not all share the same characteristics, but there's an umbrella that covers common traits that these UFOs have, meaning that UFO properly understood is not just any random, unusual light in the sky. It's generally speaking, it demonstrates behavior and appearance consistent with the UFO phenomena. So therefore, UFOs properly understood should be understood as UFOs which are consistent with the UFO phenomena. And because of the wide variety of shapes, sizes, behavior, we've got flying saucers, we see triangles, we see lots. I have narrowed down what I think are the two fundamental principles that define UFOs based on a more comprehensive knowledge of what they look like and how they operate in the past 70 years. So the first, so meaning even if it is some other weird shape or does some other weird thing that hasn't been seen before, it will generally fit into these two categories of definition. So these are definitions that I came up with. So um, the first is UFOs are objects in the sky that demonstrate intelligent control, changing direction and speed in a deliberate and non-random manner, which demonstrates awareness of their environment and respond to changes within it, such as an airplane. A UFO is flying near an airplane, it changes direction to avoid collision. Natural phenomena like asteroids and other stuff don't do that. They also may engage or initiate contact with aircraft in a way that the pilots can clearly tell are doing so in an intelligent manner. So this means that if it demonstrates this characteristic after investigation, and it is discovered that it demonstrates this characteristic, natural phenomena such as meteors, planets, clouds, flying paper bags, and debris can be ruled out because none of those demonstrate intelligent control. So that's one. The second one is the demonstration of certain types of flight capabilities. A true UFO demonstrates maneuvers and speeds that rule out conventional aircraft. Not simply because they are more advanced than any known aircraft, but because they operate on an entirely different type of physics and engineering than is known to mankind. So the basic principles of flight have not changed since the Wright brothers. All heavier than air aircraft still operate on the same laws of physics and same that cause wings to have lift, and the same physics that are used by propellers or jet engines. So the flight capabilities include high speeds. We're talking insanely high speeds. Mach 75 or Mach 5,000, like insanely high speeds that are so fast that it's not just an advanced type of aircraft. The SR-71 Blackbird, it was the fastest aircraft ever, and it made it to like Mach 3.4, which was 2,000 some miles. Humans and aircraft themselves, as we understand their design, is capable of, neither one would be able to survive that. Abrupt turns, we're talking about not just more abrupt and more maneuverable than conventional aircraft. We're talking about left-hand turns at 1,000 miles per hour, like that, like on a dime, without even any deceleration. Lack of airfoils, that includes wings and propellers. No visible means of propulsion, so we don't see the exhaust of jet engines anywhere. The Tic Tac was the Tic Tac UFO, and other Tic Tac UFOs in the past generally don't have anything that we can see as propulsion, so it's a mystery as to how they would work. And then finally, instantaneous or nearly instantaneous acceleration. We're talking 0 to 5,000 miles per hour in 0.002 seconds, that sort of thing. Um, so the bottom line with this is that if we are going to investigate UFOs, we need to understand the traits that define them so that we can better understand and document them when they are observed. That way we can learn more about them. We may never know who is flying them or where they are from unless they land and come out and tell us. But we can gather more data and come closer to a understanding of what they are likely to be, and we can follow the evidence where it leads. So, in summary, the assumption that we are dealing with alien craft is not necessarily harmful to the study, because I think there's enough evidence that should be investigated. But I think that it is actually important that we focus more on the scientific aspect of the observations of what they do, how they behave, and what they look like. And talking about aliens is a bit of a distraction from that. It's fun to think about, but right now it's good to focus more, at least for me or some people. I think it's good to put that aside, at least for the moment, and try to really get into the science of it without assumptions that we already know what they are. And then secondly, in summary, it's important that we understand what unidentified means, and what the term UFO is meant in common language, which implies more knowledge than the term unidentified would seem to mean. It means that it demonstrates certain behaviors or traits that make it unidentifiable. So, sorry, Neil deGrasse Tyson, stating that, well, all anyone can say is that it's unidentified and we have no idea. Maybe we'll figure it out someday. You're never going to fucking figure it out if you have that flippant of an attitude where you're not even curious. Oh, well, it's sure to have some scientific explanation. Well, dude, if it has some sort of scientific explanation that fits within your worldview of natural phenomena, then you should want to investigate it and figure out what the hell it is. If it's not intelligently controlled flying craft, it's still something really weird and it's worth looking into. So we need to make very clear, and this is to if you are a proponent of UFOs or UAP and you want to debate people or make your case for why the phenomena is real, which I have done a fair amount, and it's been a little bit frustrating. I think that it's good to first define the terms so that you actually understand what you're dealing with. These defining terms, being intrinsic to what a UFO or UAP is not the evidence itself. This is simply what is reported. Even if UFOs or UAP do not exist, when the term is used properly, even if they're wrong, these are the traits, the intelligent control and flight capabilities that define a UFO if they do exist. Once you've defined that term, you can go on and make the case for why these flight capabilities imply certain explanations that, even if they're not alien, are still mind-blowing, whatever they are. The existence of that technology. So anyway, those are my thoughts on defining terms. I hope this was not rambling. And if you watched this video to the end, I thank you. I appreciate you for hearing my thoughts on this, and peace out.